Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. Today, a guy I know you got to be on board with, the brilliant, dedicated, and dynamic Dr. John DiMartini. John is one of the biggest public speakers on the circuit these days. He's one of the featured teachers from the book and movie sensation, The Secret, and it's John's second appearance on People of Distinction. I'll tell you, you loved him so much the first time, and now we're old friends. Stick around, people. Gotta fill you in on this great contributor to the human family. We're going to start out with the basics here. He was born on Thanksgiving Day, for starters. Now, you probably didn't know that. It's just so propitious. You know, a lot of people whom John has helped have reason to be grateful for that. John is an entrepreneur, international educator, business consultant, and multiple best-selling author. John has appeared on hundreds of national and international talk shows, including Larry King, CNN, CBS, NBC, PBS, and a whole bunch else. He's consulted for Fortune 500 CEOs, Hollywood celebrities, sports personalities, financiers, and other professionals. And John's the best-selling author of an amazing array of books, including Count Your Blessings. You can have an amazing life in just 60 days. You know, you got to love that title. I'm going to ask John how he got the 60 days going there. The Breakthrough Experience, The Heart of Love, and his very latest book, Inspired Destiny. So stick around. We're going to be talking a lot about that. John is one of the teachers featured in The Secret. He understands the infinite wisdom of love, and he also understands the art of communication. And he knows that the two most sabotaging emotions that often rule our lives are fear and guilt. And yet, Dr. John DiMartini is the doctor who almost never was. He was diagnosed with a learning disability at a young age, and John was told that he would never read, write, or communicate. As a result, he actually dropped out of high school. Then, like magic, through the grace of a Thanksgiving birth, John, unable to read or write, met a 93-year-old man who inspired him back to life. What a story. Now, let's take a second here to reflect, people. Can you imagine the tremendous odds, the odds of going from illiteracy to becoming the world-famous author, educator, and speaker that Dr. John DiMartini has become? I mean, we're talking about courage, everybody. The courage to fulfill one's reason for one's birth. And we have that capacity in us, all of us, and I'm sure that John agrees with that. All of us have that capacity so deeply within us. It's our true birthright as human beings. John expresses the very best of us all and all of our beautiful human family. I am honored to have John as our very special guest. I encourage him to share not only the inspiring, even spiritual messages, but also the everyday, very practical messages of taking care of business in each of our day-to-day wondrous lives. If you want to visit John, just go to drdmartini.com. Welcome, John, to People of Distinction with Al Cole.
Well, good evening again. Thank you for having me. This is, what an intro.
Oh, John, I'm going to tell you, thank you, because I do the stellar introductions for the individuals like you who really deserve them. You've been there. You've done that. You've helped people so much. Every word comes from actually your activity. So, I bow to you. I honor what you've been doing. And that was the introduction. It's all about Dr. John DiMartini. I want to get your reflections on something that is such a big part of your life. You really were diagnosed with a learning problem at a young age. Is that right?
I definitely had learning problems. I could not comprehend. I had dyslexia. That was the title. I put words backwards. I used to ask the kids, what did you get out of things in order to survive elementary school? And luckily, being Italian, I had a love for this girl named Martha Rose Scartozzi. She was the brightest kid in the class, and that was my first relationship. I used to walk her home and ask her questions. What did she get from the class? Carry her books. And she would teach me, allowed me to finish at least elementary school before I dropped out.
And then you rose beyond that. I mean, you showed everybody that any sort of disability that one has that is not really endemic within that person, one can overcome. You don't have to be defined by the way that the world defines you at that time. How did you start to overcome that, John?
Well, I believe that I mean, at the time I didn't comprehend it, but now I look back and I go, I think that everything is on the way, not in the way. And
Yeah.
everything that you see in your life, if you don't want to be a victim of your history and you want to be a master of your destiny, you have to ask the question, how is whatever I'm experiencing helping me fulfill what's most meaningful and inspiring in my life? And
That's
I
right.
learned to use things to my advantage. But the first thing I did in order to overcome the reading problem was, which is a long story and I have to take it short, but I I literally went to a dictionary and I literally read a dictionary, and my mom would help me practice and test me on 30 words a day until I was 18. And so when I did, I had a dream after meeting that gentleman that you mentioned to travel the world and to be a teacher, which was like a void in my life to be, I wanted to be intelligent. I wanted to have, I didn't want to be like the rest of the kids because they used to think I was stupid. I wanted to be
Hmm.
intelligent. So I wanted to be a teacher because then teachers were intelligent, I thought. And then I had to go to the dictionary. So my mom would test me on 30 words a day, and I had to pronounce them properly. And that was not easy for dyslexia because you'd reverse everything. You'd say them backwards. You didn't get any meaning. It was really tough. But 30 words a day, I grew a vocabulary until I could read. And I started reading dictionaries and encyclopedias that to grow
Wow.
my vocabulary to catch up with the rest of the kids. Until that day, right a week before my 18th birthday, I was 17 when I met Paul Bragg. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would have just been making surfboards today. But he inspired me one night with one message over 1 hour that I can't describe. It just, he inspired me so much and made me believe in possibilities. His certainty exceeded my doubt that I was capable of doing something amazing with my life. And nobody had ever spoken to me like that. And that it just brought tears to my eyes. And I
Hmm.
saw a vision that night of what I wanted to do. And I imagined myself in front of a group of people articulating and speaking intelligently, and that's been in my vision and dream now for 39 years. And I've never lost that vision. That's been my dream. And that night I made a commitment to myself that I wanted to step foot in every country on the face of the earth and research everything I could and share as much as I can with as many people as I can to help do what he did for me, to help people live inspired lives. I do that today, every day. I'm just as inspired today as then.
Wow. Wow, that is such a great saga. You're inspiring me right now because what you're talking about is a reason for birth. You're talking about something that is so ingrained, so inborn, that it had to come out. It had to come out above all odds when you were younger, but then later, when you started to develop this, you knew where you were heading. We all have to grow, and we all change as we're growing. But that seed was there within you. And that is the seed of love, basically. What we're talking about right now is an energy that is so deep within you that you are corresponding with your higher self. You're corresponding with something that's even higher than you are. And you are the vehicle that is putting it down in words. You're the vehicle that's going out there and putting it in speaking patterns. You're the vehicle that's inspiring. But the inspiring message is something universal. It's already there, and you're tuned into it. I love that. Am I on the right track there, John?
You summarized it magnificently. In fact, I'd like to share another piece of the story that I think might be meaningful based on what you just said. When I first met Paul Bragg, I had the opportunity to study with him for a few weeks each morning. I used to hitchhike into where he was just to be with him. And after doing that, he told me that but 3 weeks went by, and then he was leaving for California, and I never had the courage to talk to him directly. I was always in a group with him. But when all of a sudden he was leaving, I made a decision that I would say something to him, and I said, "Sir, you told me at this class that I attended a few weeks ago that I could live my dream, and I saw that I wanted to be a great teacher and travel the world, and I don't know how to read, and I have learning problems and dyslexia and stuff. What do you do to overcome that?" And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "That's not a problem." He says, "I want you to say this one statement every day and never miss a day the rest of your life." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Say, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom." And he made me
Love
say
it.
it over and over and over again until I really got it. And I tell you what, 39 years later, I've never missed a day. And I believe that. I believe that a genius is one who listens to the inner voice, follows the inner vision, and obeys. And so what you said has meaning. And then when I eventually moved back to Texas, I flew back to California, hitchhiked back to Texas, and My mom and dad, when I got home, encouraged me to take a GED, a high school equivalency test. And by saying I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom, I passed. And then I took my first college class in a summer school class, an English and history class, first two classes. And I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to take notes. I dropped out for a few years. And so what happened was when I took my first test, I thought I did okay, but when I got the results the following day, I got a 27, and you had to have a 72 to pass. So my dyslexia even had the numbers in reverse.
Oh,
And
God.
then when I saw those numbers, I went crying to my car, driving home crying. I curled up in the fetal position underneath a Bible stand when I got home that afternoon. And my mom came home and saw me crying, and she'd never seen me crying since I was young. And I said, because I left home, I lived on the streets for 4 years. And then she said, "What happened? What's wrong, son?" I said, "Mom, I blew it. I guess I'll never read, write, or communicate. I'll never amount to anything. I'll never go very far in life. I guess I don't have what it takes." And I was just really bawling. And she didn't know what to say. And finally, she put her hand on my shoulder and she looked me straight in the eyes with an open heart, with certainty and gratitude and love and real presence. And she said, "Son, whether you become a great teacher here and philosopher and travel the world like you dream, whether you go back to Hawaii and surf big waves like you've done, or you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, as you've also done, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what."
Oh,
And
boy,
when
that
she
is
said
so
that,
moving.
we both had tears of gratitude. My hand went into a fist. I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading. I'm going to master this thing called studying. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and philosophy. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth, not even myself, stop me from my mission. I went and I hugged my mom. I went into my room, and that's when I started memorizing the dictionary.
That's great. That has such meaning to it. We're talking, I'm Al Cole. We're talking to Dr. John DiMartini. Now, you have heard him speak. You've bought his books. Such great stuff. He's offering wonderful, wonderful ideas for our consumption as human beings. We put it in our deepest selves. We go around, we ruminate, and we come out with beautiful messages that are inspired by John DiMartini. We're going to turn the corner on his very latest book, Inspired Destiny. Now, it's a no-brainer here. It couldn't be called anything else. He's been talking about inspiration. He's been talking about a destiny that every human being has when they are impassioned. You know, John, I'm going to ask you a question here with a slight reflection before the question. Now, because this is a show on relationships, a lot of people would think, well, you know, I can be inspired by my relationships. I can be inspired by my loved one, my wife, my husband, my children. I can be inspired by my family in general, mother, father, sister, brother. I can be inspired by friends. I can be inspired by business. I can be inspired by many things. But sometimes people forget the biggest relationship of all, the relationship that they have to themselves, with themselves. When they close their eyes and they inspect and they feel and they commune with their own inner consciousness. Now that is true inspiration, and then that can inspire relationships in their life that are truly inspiring. Do you write about that too, the relationship, the inspiring relationship that a person would have with him or herself?
Well, you know, that's you're intuitive, because that's what that book, God, that's what it's about. That is it.
There we go.
When a person lives with an intention, goals, objectives that are congruent and aligned magnificently with the highest value that they hold, their highest inspiration and aspiration, they automatically awaken their leadership. They're disciplined, they're reliable, they're focused. They feel that their teleology, their purpose, and their ontology, their being, are one and the same. And they see that reflected through the whole universe. But when a person is not doing that, and they don't have that congruency because they've subordinated to people around them and minimized themselves and felt that what they see around them is beyond what they are within them, what they do is they inject the values of others in their life, and they attempt to be somebody they're not, and they fracture themselves, cloud the clarity of the sunny truth of their heart that's guiding them to do something extraordinary. And then what that unfulfillment that emerges, they end up looking for immediate gratification. And this creates unrealistic expectations on their life. And it leads them to addictive behaviors, dependencies on other people, which can erode relationship dynamics. But the erosion is actually a symptom, feedback mechanism to guide them to honor themselves. And when they honor themselves, they transcend, because The greatest teacher is exemplification. They exemplify an inspired life. They automatically inspire other people to do the same, and that's what everybody wants, and that enhances relationships.
Absolutely.
I always say that your life speaks so loud that you can't override it with your own illusions. It speaks loud about what your values are. Your life demonstrates them. So if you look carefully at how you fill your space, things that are really, really, really important to you, you keep around you. Things that aren't, they go in the trash. Look at how you spend your time. You always make time for things that are really important to you, run out of time for things that aren't. How do you spend your energy? You're always energized. In fact, you have more energy at the end of the day than when you started if you're doing something that's inspiring to you, it's that you love, it's high in your values. And that will enhance the relationship. Because people, as I said, want to be loved and appreciated for who they are, and who they are is their values. That's what they value most. Nobody's committed to another individual. I tell people in relationships, nobody's committed to you. They're committed to fulfilling their values. And if you're the most masterful at helping them fulfill that, they're going to stay with you as long as you do.
Boy, I'm getting the message loud and clear, John, on why you are such a great speaker. We're talking about communication. I just want to put this in the face of our listeners here, with 30 seconds to 1 minute of a reflection on what you just talked about, John. What John is talking about there, people, is intention. Intention. Underscore that. Now, he started out talking about energy before that. Passion translates into energy when you can actually energize into space physically and attract people to you because of that beautiful energy that you're giving your love energy at that point. He's telling you, I love you. That's the way he knows how to say it. These things, men and women, sometimes need to communicate in a different way, on intention. How do I show you that I love you? Is that kind of on the right track here, John?
Absolutely. I love the way you said that, because what I want to emphasize out of that I got just from what you said was that people show their love according to their hierarchy of values.
Yeah.
They don't. And so every human being, regardless of age, creed, color, sex, relations, or whatever they are, young or old, they live by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life. And every individual is attempting to fulfill what's highest on their values. Their inspiration and aspiration is that. And whatever that highest values, the ancient Greeks called the telos, which meant the end in mind. It was the most intrinsic and core value that was the core of their being. In fact, it was really what their identity wrapped around. And the study of that was so important to the Greeks that they made a whole study called teleology out of it, which is a study of meaning and purpose, because whatever's highest on their value is what's most meaningful and purposeful to them. So whoever you're dealing with in a relationship, whatever that highest value is what they're dedicated to, they're committed to, what their life revolves around. So you have that, they have that. And the art of relating is mastering the art of communicating what is truly inspiring to you in terms of what is truly inspiring to them. And whenever you communicate in their values, they open up to you and they're receptive. And if you can not sacrifice your values for them, or attempt to sacrifice theirs for you, which creates a careful or a careless relationship, but have the ability to communicate what you high value and what they value most, you have a caring relationship. That's what keeps the ring on the finger if you're married. The art of communicating what's most important to you and most important to them. If you can't see how what they're dedicated to serves you, and you can't see how what you're dedicated to serves them, there's no relationship. You can have alternating monologues, not a dialogue. So the art is identifying and knowing yourself to know what they are, and knowing your loved one enough to know what theirs are, and then mastering the art of communicating in those values.
You got it.
The truth is there's no such thing as a label on people. People go around, when they don't know how to communicate, they throw labels on people. And there's no such thing as a labeled person. Everybody has a set of values, and if you communicate in their values, they're nice. If you communicate out of their values or against their values, they're going to be mean. Instead of just knowing that they're people with values, and they're worthy of communicating in those values. And if you can link and find out how what they're dedicated serves you, you will respect them enough and not want to change them. And they just want to be loved for who they are. And when you love them for who they are, they turn into who you love.
Well, I'm totally on board with what you just said. And, we were talking before air about goals and about your goals that even would go into 150 years for you, John. Now, that is, I love that positive thinking there, because we can actually live longer than we do if we have those inspiring goals. And maybe you're going to be here for about 200 more years, my man. And I love that. A rundown of some of your goals that are going to outstrip the usual time frames here.
Well, most people set goals that are mortal, and they don't allow themselves the immortal goals. And we go around and we say that we're souls theologically, but we don't set immortal goals. I wrote a posthumous biography of how I want to be perceived 1,000 years in the future. And I have it, and it's multiple pages. It's a little book, in fact, of exactly how I want to be perceived in the third person of what they'll write about my life. And I've now created my DiMartini Prize that I hope to live for 1,000 years, my institute, my foundation, everything else, because I really believe that work can go on beyond your life. And the most meaningful lives are actually that which you leave in the legacy. So I'm a believer of that. I was asked to speak in Vienna a number of years ago, 4 years ago, almost to the day. And after I spoke there were 200 world leaders there. And they were entrepreneurs, social architects working on world issues. And they had people like the Dalai Lama there, and they had religious leaders and financiers, etc. And we were working on world issues. Afterward, they had an honoring ceremony, which I wasn't expecting, where they honored the 12 speakers. And it was Eunice, the guy that got the Nobel Prize, and Wolfgang Singer, who was from the Max Planck Institute, and many others. And there's Paul Nernst, who was a Nobel Prize winner on genetics. And afterwards, they gave us this incredible ceremony inside a special library room that was a vault. And inside there was the Infinity of Divinity Library shelf, which is about 12 feet high. And on it, they handed us a stainless steel cylinder. And in that cylinder, I didn't know they did this. They took 365 quotations of my work from my book, took the DiMartini method, which is a method on conflict resolution that I've introduced to the world. They put it in a stainless steel cylinder, put on the Infinity of Divinity Library shelf to be stored 1,000 years. So that's why I'm a believer. You got to set your goals bigger than your life. Otherwise, your life will be smaller than your dreams.
You got it down there. You know, we have just a few minutes left because John is on a time frame right now. I just have to applaud you because we're talking about possibilities right now. What you're bringing up is that possibility itself is a stretch exercise. We're all used to exercising our bodies. Maybe we should try exercising some of our possibilities, our possibility thinking, and even beyond that, possibility feeling, and maybe even possibility visualization. When we stretch that, we actually achieve much more. Just like you said, we stretch the parameters. We achieve more than we ever thought we could. And as we achieve more than we ever thought we could, we achieve even more. And the more that we achieve, now we look back and say, wow, I have achieved about 5 times more than I ever thought because I stretched my possibilities into the future. People don't live long enough because we are all the time babies making babies. And if we stretch our possibilities for even life expectancy, not only can we live long, but we can, inside of ourselves, visualize us living longer and learning into the future, make it the present. Our present learning will even increase through energy. We will know more just by visualizing us in the future that way. That is great stuff. I love what you're talking about. Final question here is, I just want to ask you what you have on your plate for the future, and particularly in terms of you're going to live for 1,000 years anyway. What do you have going on in the future that will really positively affect all of our human family? Not that you haven't done it yet, but boy, you've got so much on your plate, so much vision. What would John like to leave as his legacy one day that the world will know John DiMartini from?
Well, what I'm committed to is basically identifying every possible challenge, problem, question, mystery, void that humanity has, and use my mind to the fullest capacity to try to find solutions to those challenges as they emerge throughout the world, and dedicate as my institution to assist in fulfilling those needs, trying to find solutions to whatever people's problems are. I love that because that gets my mind active and keeps me growing and studying and researching and then trying to share insights that can help. And as far as I'm concerned, I made a commitment when I was 17 to step foot in every country on the face of the earth and share my findings with people. I've reached about half of them now. I got 4 more already booked for next year, so that's another step forward. But I'm just going to keep doing that until I fulfill that objective. And that'll keep me busy as long as my physical body's alive. And I'm going to then pass the torch, as I'm doing now, to other students to assist them into hopefully doing the same. Because as you know, if we help other people get what they want to get, we help us get what we would get.
Mm-hmm.
I've also set up the DiMartini Prize for that objective. And I think I've already got my first recipient. I just had him here with me. I would have to say probably the brightest individual on earth. And he's 9 years old.
Whoa there.
Believe that he's the next Stephen Hawking of planet Earth. He's an amazing young man. You'll be hearing about him in the next year and a half as we're building this launch of him. He's absolutely one of the brightest individuals in history.
Wow.
I'd like to do what I can to assist and inspire people to help, like he's going to do, awaken their genius, because I believe we all have a genius inside.
You know it. If you want to visit John, just go to www.drdmartini.com.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share the message and hopefully, make some sort of difference or touch somebody's life, as you said.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, and great show, and I look forward to our next adventure.
It's author, musician, singer Al Cole, from a CBS radio background, now host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, celebrity interviews, giving high-level public figures the chance to talk about their very special human feelings, too. Because celebrities are human beings, people, and we are all people of distinction. And when given the chance, we will all speak openly about the very reason for our birth, the energy and dedication of what we call love. Hey, and speaking of love, you're going to love these messages. On People of Distinction, we deliver the goods.